flame on max. I'ma keep it going till there ain't nothing left. Going till there ain't nothing. Keep the flame on. Gotta keep the flame on. Gotta keep it tight. Keep it tight. Keep the flame on.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 803 with a review of F1 the movie. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. This week, we're going to be having two reviews for you. I was out last weekend, so we're catching up on F1 the movie. We're also going to have a little conversation about Jurassic World Rebirth, so stay tuned to that in the feeds. But right now, let's get into this episode, Stephen. I think in the past when we talked about, car racing movies, in the past we have enjoyed them, but we have kind of mentioned that we are not really car sport enthusiasts. Stephen, has anything changed in the last few years? Have you gotten into car racing or anything like that?
I have not gotten into it at all. If you had asked me prior to this movie, what is F1 and why is it different from NASCAR or anything else, I would not have been able to tell you the answer. That's how little I know about it. Now, I have since, just from hearing people talk about this movie or me telling them that I've seen this movie, learned that F1, it's similar to a bunch of Americans the way they watch the World Cup, right? Like it is the kind of thing where people get very into it and it's seen as a more highbrow form of racing, a thing that people can nerd out about, like the different competitors, the different cars, where different people's seats are, and which which course is particularly good for which player. There's a lot there that I have now learned that many people know and care about this, and I am just not one of them. So no, I know nothing. I probably have driven less in the last 4 years than in any other period of time in my entire life.
Yeah, I still not gotten into car racing at all. It's a thing that for me, it's hard to sort of. I definitely would never go as a spectator, right? Because you're sitting at one part of the track just waiting, and then boom, 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 boom,
right.
boom, boom, cars fly by you, and then whatever. That's your experience of the whole match. But I will say that in the early days, not even the early days, for a while, I keep seeing previews of I don't know if it actually is F1, but it's like a Apple Vision Pro experience where you see the course below your video feeds of different drivers and stuff like that. And every time I see that visualization, I go, that looks dope as hell. I could get into that, but I don't have any of the descriptions. And I think it was only ever available as a test flight when I was actually following people talking about it. So I would watch a race in that format just to check it out, but it's not something that I think I would be able to get into. Also, there's way too many things to try to learn to be able to understand what I'm watching.
Yeah. Now, I guess I also have to ask, what is your history with racing movies? Like, have you seen Days of Thunder? Probably the most obvious comparison for this one.
I have not seen it.
Oh, you got to throw that on the list. Classic Bruckheimer Cruise type movie.
Gotcha.
Pretty cool.
I feel like, I obviously haven't seen it, but I feel like the ability to convince us that the person is in the driver's seat back then versus now, there might be a gulf that makes it less all these films, right? There is some aspect to them that makes you feel the speed and everything of those vehicles. And if it's a little bit older film where you're just pretending that the person is driving the car, I can feel like there might be a little bit less of the actual drive.
Yeah. It's a good question. I don't remember. It's been a little while since I've seen it. This was before Tom Cruise was fully broken, so I don't know if he was actually driving race cars himself back in 1990. I definitely remember the racing sequences being pretty heart pounding in that movie, but maybe I'm pretty able to grade on the curve of when a movie came out and trick my brain into thinking as if I were an audience member back then. So maybe by today's standards, it wouldn't be there. But yeah. And Ford v Ferrari, did we review that? I don't remember.
I feel like we did, and I remember really liking it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. I think I've learned I'm kind of a sucker for race car movies, even though I don't actually care about the sport.
I did not like Ferrari, the movie.
Right.
Ford v Ferrari, great, loved it. Ferrari, I could not stand that movie.
Well, and Ferrari was really not about racing, except for one tragedy, as far as I can recall. I don't really think anyone was going to stand up and cheer for that one.
Yeah, it also wasn't about accents, and that was one of my problems.
My last, I'm just going to shoehorn this in because it happened yesterday and it vaguely ties with cars, is I was watching, so we're recording this on the 5th of July. So I was watching fireworks last night, listening to 4th of July by Sufjan Stevens, because whatever, the name obviously just popped up in my head.
Okay.
And that reminded me of our Call Me By Your Name review that we recorded while we were driving on I-15 at like 2 a.m. to go down for Christmas. And I listened to it, and it is it's very funny to just hear like the wind rushing past us as we talk. Both of us keep forgetting Timothée Chalamet's name because we've never heard of him before. So there are a lot of things that are aged in a very funny way. But that was our own kind of racing, death-defying stunt, was why do we podcast? You know, why do we podcast on the freeway in the middle of the night? Is it for the money? No, it's for something else.
It's definitely not for the money.
The money is good. Let's be clear.
Yeah. The good thing about the money we make on this podcast is we don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah, it's completely tax-free.
In fact, if we included it in our filings, we'd actually pay less taxes in our normal job.
Yes, yeah. This podcast is what you would call a loss, I think.
Yeah.
But I've tried to describe it as my my personal company. So I could count this as my office, but then apparently a company has to have at least $1 of revenue. And since we didn't qualify for that, then
shoot. Well, if everybody listening gets all of their friends and family to subscribe to our YouTube channel, we can actually turn on ads.
Yeah.
And then maybe we
collectively we could split $1.
Yeah. Oh, good times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder what I think the government owes us 17 years of back taxes.
I think so. Hey, a lot of governments pay artists for their work, so.
True. All right. Well, anyways, are you ready to get into this review, Stephen?
I'm ready.
Let's take a listen to the trailer for F1 the movie and come back and give everybody a review.
Some people look at Sonny Hayes. They see a guy who lives in a van, a gambling junkie who missed his shot, the best that never was. But I see possibility.
And if you don't love me now, we'll never.
My Rook is a phenomenal talent, but he's young.
Never break the chain.
You plus him, boom, I got a team.
I can still.
When was the last time you won a race?
Sunday, Daytona.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Formula One.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then same as you.
There's this new guy. He's old. He's such a prick. He's quick, though.
If you had any constructive criticism for each other, what would it be?
Don't be such an
ass dickhead. That was constructive.
Wow.
Did you win something? There's 20 other drivers still out on that track. Do you think any of them respect us?
They're saying Sonny Hayes isn't a has-been. He's a never was.
If the last thing I do is drive that car, I will take that life, man. 1,000 times.
I'm offering you an open seat in Formula One. The only place you could say, if you win, you are the absolute best in the world.
Never break the chain.
All right, so that was the trailer for F1 the movie. It is a story of a retired F1 driver who comes back to join a team that a friend of his owns, and hopefully maybe learn how to work with a rookie on that team to hopefully bring that team into the winning sphere because they currently aren't. Stephen Miller, what did you think of F1 the movie?
So this is not like a particularly great movie, I'm going to say. I don't think it really does anything new or different, from what you expect it to do. I saw it a week ago, and I'm already honestly kind of like struggling to remember things that happened in the movie because it's very much kind of a paint by numbers sports film. But damn, paint by numbers sports films can still be very fun to watch. and I found this movie totally entertaining, even while also feeling like it was giving me empty calories and kind of doing the bare minimum that would be required to entertain me. The director, Joseph Kosinski, he did Top Gun Maverick, and this feels very much in line with that, where he took a star who is arguably past their prime, a weathered star, and brought them up to a modern day action film and decided to lean into the fact that they are kind of older and out of touch and reckon with who are they and what do they represent in the new world. And Brad Pitt is doing that here. But unlike Tom Cruise, where the question is, why the hell do you put life and limb into every role you have? For Brad Pitt, it's like, what are we supposed to think about you? You were a sexy hotshot. You have, and maybe I'm bringing a lot of baggage.
What do you mean were?
Yeah, maybe I'm bringing a lot of baggage into this movie, but Brad Pitt has not had a wonderful reputation over the last 5 to 10 years. Yeah. He is not a guy whose personal life is something people champion. There's a lot of skeletons in his past, and for a guy who was driven very much on his charisma, not necessarily on being the greatest method actor or whatever, it's kind of where is there room for you in the modern day world? And for me, that is what the character of Sonny Hayes felt like. It is you were this amazing, reckless driver from a bygone era, and now that recklessness, that cowboy attitude, what does it get us? What are you good for? Why are you still here? And I think this movie it's exploring that question and not really trying to answer it in any way. I referenced in our intro this kind of repeat refrain that happens in this movie about it's not about the money. Well, what is it about? And there's never an answer to what it is about. It's you have to figure out for yourself why we do the things that we do. And allowing for this movie to just be that of just I'm going to watch this guy put everything he has into this sport that isn't necessarily logical or edifying. It doesn't have any lessons to teach us. I enjoyed the dynamic a lot. I had fun with it, with this kind of totally blank slate that Brad Pitt is giving, where his character is a man of few words. There are multiple press conferences where they're interviewing him, asking about skeletons in his past, things that you think are going to be the juicy, stuff that he keeps thinking about, and then halfway through the movie he's going to have a come to Jesus moment and finally reconcile his history. And reconciliation doesn't really happen as far as I can remember. He's just a guy who's yep, I did. Can we drive now? Okay, cool, let's drive. Yeah. and that's kind of his vibe the whole way through. The stuff that worked very well for me is anything involving racing. You're right. And luckily, much of this movie is devoted to filming races. I believe when we start the film, there are 9 races left in the F1 season. Yeah. And we get to see most of them in full, at least half of them in full, and then half maybe in montage form. And I loved it. I mean, it's kinetic. It is exciting. They find a way to shoot them differently every time, so you never really get bored of the atmosphere of racing. This thing that you and I'm sure, have talked about in the past when we've reviewed movies of how weird racing is, in that it's a game of milliseconds, but yet people are refueling and doing all these things that feel like they drastically break the idea of it being a game of inches, I feel like I understood the push and pull of that here much better. They do a good job of kind of educating the audience into the stakes and into how the matches work. And anytime someone was in a car, I was having fun. I was eating popcorn. I was enjoying my life. anytime people are doing anything very personal, I'm going to say like anything involving Javier Bardem's relationship with Sonny didn't really work for me at all. It felt very perfunctory. I didn't care about it. I felt like I could have been watching like Old Dogs or Wild Hogs or one of those kind of cheesy movies of just like, hey, we're old timers, but we still know a thing or two. Didn't really do that much for me. But man, when it's on the racetrack, I was having a good time. And at the end of the day, like, is there anything more I need than that? So I don't know. I liked it. I think Brad Pitt is good at the movie star persona here. Damson Idris as the younger guy, Joshua Pierce. He brings like a good new energy to the proceedings. Carrie Condon, who I loved in Banshees of Inisherin, was great to see her in another role. Even if she's really like turning like a half-dimensional character into a character that's like someone you want to watch, she does enough to make her matter. Like, I don't know. It was dumb fun, but I enjoyed it. How about you?
Yeah, so as we mentioned at the top of this, we're not into racing of vehicles, but there tends to be these films that come out, and it's like, I'm surprised how much I actually like that, because that movie was great. Like, as I said, Ford v Ferrari. I'm even going to put Rush in that boat. It's been a million years since I've seen Rush, but I still remember at least, like, I remember the trailers for Rush, right?
Right.
And what those films have is a bunch of distinct characters that have their own distinct motivations, and there are rivals, right? The whole thing is this one guy is a very, very, like going back all the way to like Rush, right? It's like this guy is a proficient driver who knows what he's doing and is always careful. This other guy is Thor, and he's just crazy. And he's gonna do the dangerous thing, and it's how will these two people's rivalry go through a season, and when they both put it on the line, what happens, right? That is what like the selling point of Rush is. Ford v Ferrari is, we have this mandate. We need to win this race. We need to build a new version of this car. We need to do a thing that nobody thinks is possible. We need to build something that will beat these other people that theoretically make better cars than us. It's all about that, right? This film has none of that. Arguably, this film has a single character. Technically, it has two characters. One is the Banshees woman, and the other one isn't. And if you want to stretch it, you can say that we have three. You can include Javier Bardem. But if you want to stretch it again, you could almost say that the young kid is kind of a character, even though he's really only there to be the guy who's mad that they hired an old guy to be on his team. All of that should equal a terrible film. But instead, I don't know why I walked away from this movie going like, that was a fucking fun movie right there. And it was funny because I went and saw it in IMAX, and walking out of the Metreon, there was like some people walking ahead of me that were kind of near my seats. And one of them was like, I don't know, I could have done with like 2 to 3 less races in that movie.
Hell no.
And I was like, what are you talking about? Because the best part of this film, as you said, is when the racing is happening. And thank God there is a ton of racing. Because as you said, I don't care about Brad Pitt's backstory. I'm fine with him being, it's like, hey, remember when he used to be in all the movies that you watched? He hasn't been for a while. Here he is again, and he's like the dude. And I watched I really, really enjoyed watching his, like, he just has charisma, right? He has
swagger.
Yeah. He can go there and just be a fucking movie star, and then get in the car and then come out. And it's so funny too, because like so much of this movie is just him walking alone. And I picture him as much taller. And there's a scene, you kind of saw it in the trailer, where he like throws the young kid against the wall. And then I realized he's like 6 inches shorter than the young kid. And I'm like, weird. It just, you seemed way less imposing.
That dirty little secret that all of our movie stars are like short kings. Except Adam Driver. He's a tall, lanky weirdo.
But yeah. So it's like, he's just immensely watchable. And I think that I don't know anything about F1, the sport. But I really love that what this film gets into is just like all the silly rules. But instead of having like characters that have to explain this is a rule, like you're not watching like a soccer movie or something and then having somebody explain offsides to you. You're just watching him abuse the rules. And then as the race has to be adjusted due to the rules that are being abused, you get to just understand what those rules are and how they play, and kind of like, you're like, is this even legal? What's going on here? But I had a lot of fun watching Brad Pitt be an old school driver coming back and just doing his thing. And this film really communicates the speed of what these vehicles can do. And I had a really fun time watching it in that way. And I think that, you know, a lot of times you watch extreme sports in movies and stuff like that, and you go like, yeah, that seems fun, right? This, when you watch it, you're like, I don't know how there's just not all the cars crashing at the first turn. Like, I don't understand how anybody drives these cars. I don't understand how when cars wreck, they don't all fly up in the air, you know, like in Ferrari style. But there's just something about watching the chaos and the extreme nature of these different races that I felt really into what I was watching.
Yeah.
Did I care about the characters, their arcs, what was going to happen? If the old guy and the young rookie would learn how to work together, I did not care about. There's a scene where, without getting into spoilers, a rookie comes back after being away for at least one race. And he sits down at a table, and I felt like there was a whole series of scenes that had been cut out of the movie, because he comes back with such an attitude that I was like, when did you, where did that come from? What scene am I missing that explains why you're suddenly acting like the whole movie was about this and not the whole movie was about just people racing? That was weird. I don't know what was up with that. But besides that, I found myself really enjoying this film. I've seen it more recently than you, so it's still sticking with me a little bit, but really just the kind of fun nature of what it was that I watched.
Yeah, I am jealous that you saw it in IMAX. I saw it at Alamo, and it was still, the racing scenes were still great. But while I was watching it, I was like, damn it, I should have gone IMAX just to have the full experience. Because this is all about that showmanship. Like, there isn't a whole lot on the dramatic side to recommend it, though, of course, Brad Pitt as a movie star works still, but I wish I could have gotten the Kinetic at like a bigger screen and a higher volume. It's funny, I couldn't put my finger on why until now. This movie made me think of Ted Lasso a few times. I think it was partly the press conferences, partly the actress who plays Joshua Pierce's mom is just also in Ted Lasso. And it's like the idea that the game is an extension of some emotional lesson that two people who need to grow the fuck up are having, you know? But what is interesting and for me kind of refreshing about this movie, as opposed to Ted Lasso, is there aren't actually any lessons. You know, there isn't really like a cute moral that is learned, and in the end, it's like buddy. It's like the movie is happy to just leave it with, I don't fucking know. Let's get in the car.
There's one lesson, Stephen. Don't drive angry.
Don't drive angry. This movie also, like, we talk about the swagger of Brad Pitt and of just the movie in general. Like, this is the kind of movie that it knows what you know is going to happen, and it gives you what you want, but it does it with such a, like, nonchalant way. It feels like, I don't know how to explain it, except it's like self-aware to just be like, it knows it's hot as shit. And it's just like, we're going to do the thing. Like, there's a poker game that happens late in this movie. And if you've seen any movie, you know everything that is going to happen. You know how the match is going to end. You know what's going to be revealed about that match. You know what's going to happen right after that match. You know all of it, right? And when I was watching this, the way it all plays out, it's in the span of like 30 seconds. It's kind of like, you know, that thing we're doing? Yeah, we're doing that fucking thing right now. And there's some kind of joy in watching a movie just like settle in the grooves of the cliches that it's playing in and embracing the cliches. And I think this, I don't know, it embraces those silly cliches pretty damn well.
The other interesting thing, which anybody who's listening here who knows anything about F1 is going to be like, you're an idiot for not understanding this. But like, I didn't realize that with F1, really every race until the last race is just about placement for the next race.
I wanted to ask you this. Is this true, or is this a trick that the movie is doing to make it emotionally more interesting for us to watch the last race? Because isn't there a whole point, like, system? Like, I was asking a friend and I didn't get a very satisfying answer. Like, is the last race actually the, quote, winner of the season? Or is the last race just the last race? Like, I know, of course, like, the race before will indicate your placement in the new one, but it makes no sense to me that people would burn so much money doing all of these races for so long just to be, like, one car ahead at the very final one.
Yeah, because right now I'm playing Mario Kart World, right? And in that, it's just about adding up all the points you get for the end. And then at the end, it doesn't matter if you got first, as long as your points are more than all the other drivers. Maybe that is how F1 is. Maybe people are like, man, you're an idiot twice. But this film definitely treats it as though like nothing matters until the final race. Like in theory, like I think there is like some cutoff because, you know, they were worried about stuff happening to their team if they didn't get at least one win of height. Yeah. But it definitely feels like they treat it as though like nothing really matters. And then on the last race, like if you could be like ninth every single race for the whole season, and at the end, if you just happen to win, it's like boom, you're a god. But
yeah, I was going to ask you about the same thing. To me, that is a little movie magic where they're manipulating the audience into feeling that is the case.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me if that is actually the way it works. I think they're doing a little trick because Javier Bardem talks about, I mean, not to spoil this movie, but someone we care about may at least get close to winning one of these races. And Javier Bardem, when he's trying to convince Brad Pitt to join at the beginning of the movie, he says, all we need is one win. And he also says, the thing about F1 is when you win for at least one moment, you are the best in the world.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a sleight of hand where it's saying like, until the next race, you are the best in the world. Not necessarily like you have crushed the whole season, so until next year, you're the best in the world. I think it's just like each race is independent.
Yeah, so this doesn't technically answer the question because if points still matter, then points still matter. But somebody in r/Formula One 8 years ago asked, has a driver ever won the championship without winning a single race in that season? And then somebody, like the first most upvoted answer is no, but both these two people they're mentioning won the title with just a single win.
Yeah. So there's no way it's just the last race. So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it must be points. But either way, however that last race turns out.
Yeah. Well, okay. As long as we're talking about not understanding, cars or racing, which every time we review one of these movies, we get to learn like one or two new things about a sport. One part of that dynamic I don't really get. So Sonny is the aging star. Joshua is the young upstart. Right. And the movie is framing it. Javier Bardem, even in the trailer, talks about this. Like, I have this young kid. He's great. His skills are, undeniable, but he's a rookie. He's got a hot head. He needs to learn a thing or two. That dynamic, I can totally understand in like a physical sport where it's about like your speed, your strength, things where you age out and you just can't do it anymore. Like, you might know all the right moves and have all the right instincts, but you just can't. You can't hoof it. Like you will never run a marathon as fast as a 21-year-old or whatever. In this sport, I get the reflexes are a thing, and we see some stuff kind of indicating that. But like, why does it feel like a foregone conclusion that Josh is obviously the future, who has to be the one that wins matches, and Brad Pitt is the aging veteran who can like help train someone, but he's an old dog in a new world? Like you just have to go fast. And going fast is just like your foot on the pedal. It isn't like, I mean, I understand there are a lot of forces you're withstanding. So there is some level of physical endurance you need for this sport. I couldn't really understand what is the skill other than having good instincts here. Like, I don't really understand the distinction between someone who can go fast but has poor judgment and someone who can't. Like, everyone can go fast if you're willing to crash. Well, it doesn't totally make sense to me.
That's
except for obviously being able to like advise the mechanics who like tweak the car, right? That is a knowledge type of skill set that you can build over the years that is different from being good at racing.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it comes down to is the experience your brain is like machine learning how to behave differently on the track, right? Like if we sat down in a Formula One car, we would wreck it on the first turn, right? Because we don't understand anything. But when you've done 10,000 first turns, eventually you get to the point where it's like exactly the feel of everything. Or it's like when you get used to driving your own car and then you have a rental car and you're like, oh shit, this behaves wildly different than the vehicle I drive every day. So,
yeah. Just to clarify, I would wreck it on the first turn, even if I wasn't driving. If by wreck it we mean shit my pants.
I mean, let's also be fair. We would probably wreck it off the starting line.
Yeah,
because we would spin out.
Shit, is this in manual?
And I'm an idiot. It is points based. Another person in this comment from 8 years ago is like, if a driver finished second in every race, that's 17 points times 21 races, which equals 357 points. It would still be fewer points than 5 of the 6 of the last 6 champions. If you get second every single race, you're probably not going to win. But this film definitely is like, none of that fucking matters. But also, that's just us getting caught up in the excitement of what the races mean.
But the last question I have, which I feel like this is going to be a recurring segment because it's happened a bunch in recent movies, is like, how does money work in these sports or these worlds? Because we see, and I know Sonny doesn't do it for the money. And at the beginning, we are seeing that he's kind of like a mercenary. He just drives for the love of it. I believe we see him getting a check cut out for $5,000 for him winning Daytona. I don't understand what race car drivers are paid, because it seems like if people are investing hundreds of millions, like they should be making like millions and millions of dollars for this. And I can't tell, is that a character trait that he just doesn't accept a lot of money, or is there something about the racing world that is different than my intuition?
Yeah, it might be something like, like a CEO taking $1 as their salary sort of situation.
Right.
Because I think the economies of scale there don't really make sense. It's like our conversation about materialists, right? It's like,
exactly. Yeah.
It's like,
we're going to have this conversation in Jurassic World too, by the way.
100%. Oh, good times.
Yep.
Should we get to verdict, Stephen?
Sure.
All right. If you were going to give this a must see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental, pass with a caveat, or must avoid, what would you give it?
I'm going to go recommend with a caveat. Like, my brain knows this is a pretty dumb movie. I know that between the racing sequences, we are basically just riding on the charisma of Brad Pitt to carry the movie, because the drama, the personal growth, the whatever else the movie tries to throw at us is like paper thin. There isn't a lot there. But Brad Pitt, for all of his numerous flaws, is a goddamn movie star, and the racing sequences are pretty incredible to watch. And so that made me have a really great time, even while believing this to not be a great movie. So I recommend you see it. I recommend you see it in theaters if that is still an option for you. Don't go in expecting any more than cool cars being raced around, and then I think you're going to have a good time. It isn't quite Ford v Ferrari levels of good, but it is still a satisfying movie.
Yeah. For me, it's recommend with a caveat as well. If you still have an option to see this in like an IMAX, I'll for you specifically, I will bump it up to a must see, just because it wasn't shot on IMAX cameras, but it's shot for IMAX, so it takes up the entire screen, the entire film, which is pretty rad.
Nice.
So it's worth checking out if you can. But for everybody else, if you're going to watch this at home on Apple TV Plus or whatever you're going to watch it on, maybe not as soon as it's available. You have to stop everything to watch it. But I had an amazing time on it. I also saw it like a week later than everybody else did. So I kind of like went in just completely blind and was like, all right, that was a fucking movie. There you have it. 2 recommends with caveats. Stephen Miller, that's the end of our episode. If people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at Blue Sky at sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or ChristopherIRL on a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you can get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so in Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, so hopefully you're enjoying that. We're going to take off. We're going to take a breather for a second. Then we're going to travel back 65 million years, except for to present day. And we're going to bring you a review of Jurassic World Rebirth. See you in the feeds in a moment. Bye.